So we'll begin now with this most important aspect here of the yoga of the soul's release. A vision lightened on the viewless heights, a wisdom illumined from the voiceless depths, a deeper interpretation, greatened truth, and then a grand reversal of the night and day. All the world's values changed, heightening life's aim. A wiser word, a larger thought came in than what the slow labor of human mind can bring. A secret sense awoke that could perceive a presence and a greatness everywhere. We should take note of Sri Aurobindo using a presence and a greatness in capitalized words. Night and day, of course, we've gone through those. He has used even truth, and I don't think we've discussed truth so far. So let us begin with that from the letters on yoga, because it is so critical to our understanding of the integral yoga. Sri Aurobindo writes, science started on the assumption that the ultimate truth must be physical and objective, and the objective ultimate, or even less than that, would explain all subjective phenomena. And then he tells us, yoga proceeds on the opposite view, that the ultimate truth is spiritual and subjective, and it is in that ultimate light that we must view objective phenomena. It is such an important thing that we have to see truth, the ultimate truth, being spiritual, and not as science does, and saying that the ultimate truth is physical and objective. And that physical and objective truth is able to explain all subjective phenomena. It is not. Empirical reasoning and understanding is a very small part of a truth that is incorrect for the most part. So in the foundations of Indian culture, Sri Aurobindo tells us, the supreme truths are neither the rigid conclusions of logical reasoning, nor the affirmations of creedal statements, but fruits of the soul's inner experience. So the supreme truths can only be the fruits of the soul's inner experience. And then he gives us this unforgettable line, intellectual truth is only one of the doors to the outer precincts of the temple. How beautiful. And we have 3 statements by the Mother in her Works of the Mother, volume 15, in which he tells us that the truth is something living, moving, expressing itself at each second. And then there's a comma, and she says, and it is one way of approaching the Supreme. Then in another statement she says, the truth is not linear, but global. It is not successive, but simultaneous. Therefore, it cannot be expressed in words. It has to be lived. And her last statement, truth is a difficult and strenuous conquest. One must be a real warrior to make this conquest. A warrior who fears nothing, neither enemies nor death, for with or against everybody, with or without a body, the struggle continues and will end by victory. For me, this is so important. Why? Because Mother has told us that with or without a body, it will end by victory. So then we had these experiences of Ashwapati, and he is seeing a presence and a greatness everywhere. If we go outside, do we feel or see the presence in a sidewalk, a building, a dog? Or do we just feel a presence in the ashram building, the service tree, Mother's room? We must perceive through a secret sense this presence and this greatness everywhere. Because what has Sri Aurobindo told us? He's told us that the light is everywhere because God is everywhere and God is in everything. So have we done presence before? Do any of you remember? I don't believe so.
Yeah, we did presence.
We did it, okay, because it was quite long, I remember. And so we'll continue now then with the words, the universe was not now this senseless whirl. Senseless whirl, oh, powerful. What is a whirl? A whirl is something that is spinning around. And the universe is rotating, it's revolving rapidly. We see that when the astronauts come back and tell us at the speed that they're traveling, it's thousands and thousands of miles per hour. But the universe is not a senseless whirl that is borne round inert on an immense machine. So Ashwapati sees this. He sees that it all has meaning. It has very deep meaning. And then there's a semicolon after machine. So he continues, it cast away its grandiose, lifeless front. A mechanism, no more, or work of chance, but a living movement of the body of God. Now, the word grandiose, I believe I mentioned once before, but in the true sense of the word, not as we use it colloquially these days, as he had a grandiose appearance or a grandiose character. It just means characterized by greatness. Grandiose is something grand. And a mechanism no more, or work of chance. Well, here chance is capitalized, and so I'm giving a couple of definitions of Sri Aurobindo, but we have to understand that in Ashwapati's view, he sees that nothing is anymore a work of chance. Sri Aurobindo says, chance is not in this universe. The idea of illusion is itself an illusion. There was never illusion yet in the human mind that was not the concealing and disfigurement of a truth. So he's very clear that there is no chance in this universe. And in the essays, Divine and Human, he has one small line that tells us all. What we call chance is a play of the possibilities of the infinite. So Ashwapati is seeing here that this vast universe is not an immense machine. It is not a senseless whirl. He sees this presence and this greatness everywhere. And he sees that there is no chance, because everything is a living movement of the body of God. How beautiful. A spirit hid in forces and in forms was the spectator of the mobile scene. The beauty and the ceaseless miracle let in a glow of the unmanifest. The formless, everlasting moved in it. So we should talk about the unmanifest, because Sri Aurobindo has a few things to say, and maybe Vladimir, you could comment in this third one when he speaks of the Tao or Sunyam. He says, in the hour of God, whatever the manifestation may be, spiritual or material or other, it has behind it something that is beyond itself. And even if we reach the highest possible heights of the manifested existence, there would still be beyond that even an unmanifested from which it came. And that is why he says the supermind is not the end of everything. We can rise above that into Satchidananda and all the worlds above. He says again, the unmanifested supreme is beyond all definition and description by mind or speech. No definition the mind can make, affirmative or negative, can be at all expressive of it or adequate. And lastly, to the mind, this unmanifest can present itself as a self, a supreme nihil, Tao or Sunyam, a featureless absolute, an indeterminate, a blissful nirvana of manifested existence, a non-being out of which being came, or a being of silence out of which a world illusion came. But all these are mental formulas expressing the mind's approach to it, not that. And he capitalizes the T, not that, but impressions which fall from, again, that capitalized, upon the receiving consciousness, not a true essence or nature, swarupa, of the eternal and infinite. Even the words eternal and infinite are only symbolic expressions through which the mind feels, without grasping, some vague impression of this supreme. Vladimir, can you share something with us?
Yes, on Shunya you said, and well, here it is quite obvious from this beautiful verse of the formless is actually Shunya. where there is no form yet made. So we perceive it as shunya, but it is, truly speaking, not emptiness. Emptiness because there is no form, but it is filled with something, with the presence and greatness and light, as it were. So formless light or infinite being is there, where the Supreme wants to rest from his own existence, as Sri Aurobindo says in his Sri Aurobindo Upanishad. He is Saguna and Nirguna. In Saguna, he enjoys infinite qualities of himself, and in Nirguna, he enjoys freedom from his own existence.
Yes.
So that enjoyment of his own existence within his own domain, not being manifested in any form, is actually that what we call shunya or
Wonderful.
asat.
So we will go now to the next page, which will be 43. So the last line in 42, we had the formless existence, the formless everlasting. The everlasting is simply God here, the eternal, moved in it, seeking its own perfect form in souls and things. And this is the shunyam that Vladimir was just referring to, that the divine himself is seeking his own form, perfect form, in souls and in things. I mean, there are many things, such as the stone. Now, Richard Wilbur has a very interesting poem. It's a very short poem, and I'll just find that for a second to share it with you. It's called Two Voices in a Meadow, and it makes us think very, very carefully about this. And this is the stone. And the stone says, as casual as cow dung, under the crib of God, I lie where chance would have me, up to the ears in sod. Why should I move? To move befits a light desire. The still of heaven would founder, did such as I aspire. So we see that even the stone is in its proper place, its proper creation of the divine seeking its own perfect form in souls and things. Now, we continue. Life kept no more a dull and meaningless shape. In the struggle and upheaval of the world, he saw the labor of a Godhead's birth, a secret knowledge masked as ignorance, fate covered with an unseen necessity, the game of chance of an omnipotent will. And we've done ignorance before, I know, but we've not done will. And will is very, very important. So let us see what Sri Aurobindo tells us. The energy that creates the world can be nothing else than a will, and will is only consciousness applying itself to a work and a result. That's in his Life Divine. So this is actually extremely important, that in the Letters on Yoga, he says, will is the pressure of a conscious force on nature. And again, in the Life Divine, what becomes desire in the ego is will in the spirit. And he gives us two very powerful statements in the synthesis of yoga. The real motive power of the life of the soul is will. Desire is only a deformation of will in the dominant bodily life and physical mind. So desire is only a deformation of will in the dominant bodily life and physical mind. The essential turn of the soul to possession and enjoyment of the world consists in a will to delight, and the enjoyment of the satisfaction of craving is only a vital and physical degradation of the will to delight. It is essential that we should distinguish between pure will and desire, between the inner will to delight and the outer lust and craving of the mind and body. And then lastly, he says, the leader of the journey, the captain of the march, the first and most ancient priest of our sacrifice is the will. This will is not the wish of the heart or the demand or preference of the mind, to which we often give the name. It is that inmost, dominant, and often veiled conscious force of our being, and of all being, tapas, shakti, shraddha, that sovereignly determines our orientation, and of which the intellect and the heart are more or less blind and automatic servants and instruments. And lastly, what does Mother say? She says, will is conscious power and conscious act of force of being. Well, actually, something that's life divine. Mother says, will, power of consciousness turned towards effectuation. Ah, yes. So that's in Mother's volume 14. And we have a few minutes so we can carry on. A glory and a rapture and a charm, the all blissful sat unknown within the heart. Earth's pains were the ransom of its prisoned delight. You know, Sri Aurobindo has used this hyphen, all hyphen, so many times. And we find in the English language so many all hyphens, all love, all negating, all powerful, all sustaining, all truth, all vision, all wisdom, so many of these things becoming actually one word. Because blissful is not enough and all is not enough when they're set apart. They have to be hyphenated. So earth's pains were the ransom of its prison delight. A glad communion tinged the passing hours. When something is tinged, it is sort of touched with a trace or a slight amount of something, as a color would tinge something, a pale color. So this glad communion of Ashwapatis has tinged the passing hours. And even the days were travelers on a destined road, the nights companions of his musing spirit. So he's now in a very awakened consciousness. And we'll go just a few minutes more because it's very important to understand that a heavenly impetus quickened all his breast, Now, an impetus is an impelling force. It's an impulse. A heavenly impetus quickened all his births. To quicken something means to make it alive, to make it vital, stimulated it. The trudge of time changed to a splendid march. Oh, and I think actually that I have to stop there because we have to go through trudge, time, and so many things next week. And then we'll go into the divine dwarf. And here I know that Amal and Nolini and Madhav have helped me, Purani has helped me, and Vladimir will help us also. So thank you so much for attending, and I'm very, very grateful that you've all come. Namaste.
Naradji, I had one question with regards to the reversal. There was a line very profound that said the reversal
the night and day.
Yes. Is that the reversal of consciousness that he's experiencing?
Yes, it is. You see, when we're beginning this yoga, we're all in the night. We're in the day, but we're not in the day yet. But Aswapati is now. It is a grand reversal for him.
There is a beautiful description, if you don't mind, in this of the same kind in the Gita, where Sri Krishna says, for those who are awakened to the higher consciousness, the ordinary things of people is the night. They fall asleep. But when their ordinary consciousness awakes, they fall asleep. It is for them night. This is the reversal, you know. You find different set of meanings in life which do not exist for ordinary consciousness. Whenever people are excited to go for parties, to go for picnics, whatever, you fall asleep because it's more. So this is the reversal in psychological terms.
Vladimir, would you be able to share the shloka number from Gita? If not now, maybe in the email?
Sure, I will email. Yes, it is.
Thank you. Yeah, because all my life, me and my husband have run away from parties. So if to come home to read Savitri or something else, yeah. So I would love to read the Gita's shloka also on that. Thank you.
I have this question which I want to ask. The Vladimir has talked about something called formlessness. So just in the context of space, it seems that the space is formless and it doesn't have a form. But when you bring to room or you talk about room space or a certain other, in a form like room space or a theater space, you seem to have the space is coming into a certain form. So how do you actually, and sometimes certain space has got its own intelligence also. Even you enter there and you feel a different kinds of vibe. There is no form out there, but on that formlessness also you have some different kind of understanding. In India, you have a system on that called Vastu, where you try to understand the space and other formlessness things which goes around. So what is, when you go and switch over between form to formlessness, how do a person should, work on his own perceptions? How do they, work on their own mind?
Would you like to answer, Vladimir, or shall I? You answer. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
I had the experience of entering Mother's room when I was very young, when I first met her. And there were no walls. It was absolutely an infinite space. I didn't see a room at all. So I think when one changes or is given a blessing of a moment of higher consciousness, we see that space is infinite. We are only dividing it with our mind and our mind's walls. Vladimir, you please add too.
So beautiful what you said. Yes, it just reminded me about the movie I saw yesterday about one person who was imprisoned, and then when she became free, she said, "I wasn't imprisoned by the bars. I was imprisoned by my hate." My vengeance, my sense of this was imprisoning me. It's not the bars which were holding me. So we kind of build the walls around ourselves in accordance with the consciousness we have. So basically, you are right. The room has a particular consciousness, a particular. So each space is building up certain frameworks, certain formation, and those formations, when they are no more there, we see it as shunya, actually, as all possible, all potential. Everything is possible. Any formation can be done, can be made. We can start from zero and build the worlds. Yes? So, but you are right. The space within the vessel is that Brahman, yes, which is allowing this vessel to come into that particular functionality. You're talking as an architect. It's an important vision of architecture here, that each space is framed in a particular consciousness, so to say, gives a particular perception of oneself. This is beautiful what we are touching upon. A space, formation of the form, and filling the form with its presence. And Brahman, as Sri Aurobindo says, is impersonal. It is everywhere the same, outside, inside, and within the heart. It is the same presence. So here we are.
Thank you all again. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.